in Goa.
In a mutually beneficial relationship. The presence of BIMSTEC leaders in Goa has definitely enriched the BRICS summit. It added a new dimension of interaction and potential cooperation between our two groupings. The first was a retreat format in which our leaders of the BIMSTEC countries exchanged views and ideas in an informal setting on a wide range of issues of global and regional significance. The leaders that were present, initially, of course, as I mentioned to you, that all the leaders were to have been there, but unfortunately, because of the sad demise, passing away of His Majesty, the King of Thailand, the Prime Minister of Thailand sent his representative, and the other leaders were represented at the summit level. The leaders sat together and realized the need to infuse new energy and to rejuvenate the BIMSTEC in the 14 sectors that there is already an ongoing cooperation. Specifically, I will tell you which are the specific sectors on which our leaders from BIMSTEC gave emphasis and where it was decided to move forward with concrete action. So one was the BIMSTEC Framework Agreement on transit, transshipment, and movement of vehicular traffic. The other one was to work towards BIMSTEC Trade Facilitation Agreement. The next was to have an annual exercise on BIMSTEC disaster management. We are all disaster-ridden countries. We've, some stage or the other, faced natural disasters, and so this is a very important element of cooperation. And our leaders gave us that direction to work for cooperation in this sector. Information intelligence sharing, an annual meeting of our national security chiefs, was yet another important outcome that was decided by our leaders. It was agreed to fast-track the BIMSTEC Free Trade Agreement talks. It was also decided that we should initiate talks on BIMSTEC Coastal Shipping Agreement and expand a BIMSTEC Energy Trade Cooperation, set up a BIMSTEC Center for Technology Transfer, a BIMSTEC Economic, Technical and Infrastructure Cooperation. You would remember that just before we came to Goa, I had had an opportunity to brief, and some of you were present there as well, about what are the areas of cooperation, and you'd asked me what would come out of it. So this is the outcomes that have come out of it, and this is my list. Cooperation on countering radicalization and terrorism. So I'll just stop here for a moment to tell you about how this particular issue, I had mentioned, somebody had asked me last time, would terrorism be discussed? And of course terrorism was discussed because the entire region is plagued by the scourge of terrorism. And this is something that the leaders felt very strongly about. They raised it in their discussions, including in the BRICS BIMSTEC Outreach Summit, where all the leaders repeatedly emphasized how important it is to combat the scourge of terrorism. This is also reflected in the outcome document that has come out of this summit. We have put it out on our MEA website, so please do access it. It will certainly go through the list of cooperation and other activities that our leaders have directed us to focus upon. But as far as the terrorism paragraph is concerned, and Vikas had mentioned, I'll just read out some of the salient points of what our leaders decided. First, they recognize that terrorism continues to remain the single most significant threat to peace and stability in our region, and reiterated their strong commitment to combat it in all its forms and manifestations. And they stressed that there can be no justification for acts of terror on any grounds whatsoever. Our leaders condemned terrorism in the strongest terms, including the recent barbaric terror attacks in the region. They strongly believed that our fight against terrorism should not only seek to disrupt and eliminate terrorists, terror organizations and networks, but should also identify, hold accountable, and take strong measures against states who encourage, support, and finance terrorism, provide to terrorist groups, and falsely extol their virtues. There should be no glorification of terrorists as martyrs. Our leaders recognized the need for urgent measures to counter and prevent the spread of terrorism. And it is in this context that it was agreed to hold talks amongst our national security advisors. The other important outcomes include connectivity, both physical and economic, connecting South Asia to Southeast Asia. And then there were discussions on BIMSTEC mutual assistance on customs matters. This connects to the instructions we've received to move forward on trade facilitation agreement, and customs mutual assistance in customs matters also forms a very important component of trade facilitation. We were also instructed to focus on agriculture cooperation, and our leaders decided to set up a BIMSTEC eminent persons group so that they can provide new energy, new ideas on how to further rejuvenate this grouping. I'll stop here as far as BIMSTEC is concerned and then move on to the Brazil bilateral summit that has just happened. Brazil is a strategic partner for India. We've had a strategic partnership relationship with them for the last 10 years. India and Brazil cooperate very closely with each other in important multilateral and plurilateral forums, foremost being the United Nations, including for the reform of the Security Council, and we are part of the G4 group. In addition to that, we are part of several other groupings, whether it's related to climate change, the basic BRICS, of course, the fact that the summit took place as part of this grouping, and Brazil is a very important member of BRICS. And there is IBSA, then there are other groupings that we are cooperating in. We coordinate our positions very closely in WTO, at the World Intellectual Property Organization, and other issues where we as two democracies, two developing countries with aspiring populations focused upon growth and sustainable development have a lot in common. So this particular visit takes place in that backdrop of our strategic partnership. The Brazilian delegation led by the president, and you know that he was appointed president in September this year. He had been acting president for 3 months before he assumed his position as president. He's accompanied by his spouse and a very high-level delegation that included the foreign minister, the trade minister, and the agriculture minister. The program elements are known to you. It started with restricted talks, followed by delegation-level talks. And then a very important component of the summit meetings were our leaders' meetings with the business community from the two countries. So there were 6 CEOs from India and 6 CEOs from Brazil who had met earlier this morning and discussed ways and means and how we could boost our cooperation in trade and investment. And then they presented their outcome and shared their thoughts with our leaders on how we can rejuvenate our trade and investment relationship.
Secretary of the MEA Preeti Saran addressing the media persons in Goa after the bilateral meeting which was held between the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Brazilian President Michel Temer a short while back. She